Hello, everybody. Welcome to Module 5. In this module, we are going to look at the fascinating world of criminological theory. Again, for those of you that are majoring in criminology, you'll have a course that specifically is designed to give you more information on criminological theory. That's our criminology course. For those of you taking this as an elective, it should wet your whistle a little bit and give you a background that you need so that you can converse about it. Also, at the end of this lecture, I'm going to be giving you some instructions to help you with your assignment coming up, because starting this week, you will be needing to use journal articles as part of your research assignments. Yes, I've got a cat over here that just meowed. So with that, let's take a look. All right, criminology is the study of deviance in all forms, okay? That's the simple textbook definition of what constitutes criminology. However, people commit deviant acts for different reasons at different times. Let's face it, we've all done things that are deviant, all right? And our motives for doing something deviant at any given time can change. Now, the holy grail of criminological theory is to find some general theory of crime that covers just about everything. Now, most people that come out with a criminological theory will say that they've somehow created a general theory of crime. However, in most cases, when we examine theories, we can find exceptions to the rule. As a result, as criminologists, we have a vast body of theory, all right, and theoretical thought. And by the way, another word that is frequently used for theoretical thought is the term paradigm. And that's something that terms, no matter what you're majoring in, is a term you should expose yourself. And again, what that means is theoretical thought. Now, I'm going to go over 5 of the major theories, and you've got readings on each one of these, by the way. The most popular theory in American criminology, or at least I should say American criminal justice policy, because those that study criminology have issues with this, and that's something you're going to look at as part of this week's research exercise, but is rational choice or deterrence theory. This is based in economics, and it's just very simple math. It's a cost-benefit analysis. If the punishment is sufficiently harsh so that the cost outweighs the benefit, I'm not going to commit the crime. Now, when we find that crime rates go up, and this is how this plays into how this policy plays into it, many times using this lens, we think the reason why is because we don't punish harshly enough. Although economists have come to question that if I give somebody 22 years and I increase it to 25 years, whether that 3 years is going to impact behavior. And there's also a question that when people commit crimes, they assume that they're going to get away with it. So many times this cost-benefit analysis doesn't occur. That said, it's the underlying theory that is behind U.S. corrections policy. And the big point you need to remember about this is that when crime goes up, all right, we need then to increase punishments to lower crime. That said, there are many that have not seen a correlation in that area. We go into that more in the theory course. The latest theory that has come out, well, actually, it's an older theory that's been given new life, is biosocial theory. And biosocial theory actually originated in Italy around the turn of the 20th century by a gentleman by the name of Cesare Beccaria. And what he did was he tried to distinguish criminals from non-criminals by looking at physical traits. And what he did was a very in-depth study that ended up leading to this, what he considered to be the physical traits of a criminal. Now, reading his works now with the 21st century lens, we find many of those correlations, actually just about all of the correlations he made, don't fit, and that criminals come in all shapes and sizes. That said, this fell out of favor post-World War II after it led to that, and a number of other theories led to a policy called eugenics. And in the case of the United States, this policy was looking at how we could remove unsatisfactory characters from society, and one of those thoughts was preventing them from being born. And that led to a eugenics movement where in the state of Arkansas, steps were taken to many times sterilize individuals that were mentally ill. And again, this happened until post-World War II, where eugenics went nuts with Hitler, who was a big believer in the theory. But on the American side, it led to many sterilization of people that we consider to be undesirable characters. The theory was kind of laying in rest until the advent of DNA. Kevin Beaver is a gentleman that has brought this theory to light, and he has taken a look at DNA and genetics and found that while we might have certain physical traits, there are certain genetic traits that prisoners have, that criminals have, that if they are not put into a nurturing environment, can cause violent activities. One of his biggest is something that he calls the gang gene, which is a certain DNA combination. That said, unlike Beccaria, that was just looking at the physical traits of crime, the current modern school of biosocial theory takes a look at it and says that we have a combination of both nature where the DNA exists, but there's also a nurturing issue as well. And that somebody that has the gene doesn't necessarily become a criminal if they're put into a sufficiently nurturing environment. Okay, I want to go into the Chicago School, and we're going to look a lot more at this in our unit on social justice. The Chicago School and Social Disorganization Theory, which is the leading theory that's come out of the Chicago School. That said, when we look at strain theory momentarily, we'll also see that some Chicago School theories have been modified. But basically, social disorganization theory looks at crime as a function of lack of economic opportunity, and that many times people commit crimes because it's the only way for them to get ahead or to survive. Important in the analysis of the Chicago School is the impact of race and class, and that race and class can interact together to create a social condition whereby people find crime permissible. Important to this are visions of the future, and that people find that there is somehow a way that if they're in poverty, they can get out. Important in the Chicago School and the social disorganization theory is something called social capital, where people where individuals that are trapped in high poverty environments and high crime environments have somebody that can guide them and give them the tools they need, particularly in areas that may lack strong public schools, so that they can get out of that. Now, that is one of the things that the Chicago School considers very important. And one thing that's lacking in many high crime, largely African American neighborhoods are mentors that can help individuals, that can show them a pathway out. And this is something the Chicago School feels is very important, because if there's not that linkage to be able to get out of poverty and to be able to live self-sustaining, is that it nurtures a criminal environment. Many times the Chicago School will lean toward social problems and social programs as a possible way to fix crime. Now, we're going to take a look at strain theory because that's become incredibly popular as well. And again, you're going to have readings that go into more depth in all of this. So again, I'm only doing a general overview. But strain theory began as the Chicago School as a theory by Merton, all right? And Merton actually looked at strain with a term that he called anime, all right? And his term for anime is that people that were living in socially disorganized low-income neighborhoods felt a strain because they couldn't meet society's expectations legally. And because of that strain, which he called anime, people then, in order to meet the standards that society set, used illegal means to accomplish those standards. For example, if society said that people needed certain kinds of clothing, and somebody wasn't able to afford that type of clothing, then anime theory would say that could possibly cause a strain, causing people to steal the clothing. All right? Now, anime has largely been discredited. However, a gentleman by the name of Agnew modified strain theory and said, you know what, this isn't something that's low income. People commit crimes because they can't deal with stress. All right? And strains of trying to just live in everyday life. And those that are under this extreme strain are more likely to commit crime. This has become a major school of criminology and is something that is currently actively studied. That said, we still will now and then see an occasional study that looks at anime theory. The last theory I want to talk about is social learning theory that was invented by a gentleman called Rob Akers. I want to let you know that's his picture up there. He is still living. But what you need to know about this is he builds on something called Sutherland's differential association theory. Again, Sutherland isn't our main issue here. What we need to know is Akers emphasized the fact that crime was a social process, all right? And important in that process were the people around us and the influences they gave us. A very bad influence that can definitely lead us into crime, according to Akers, is the role of delinquent peer groups, where if our friends are doing things that are not right, it's more than likely that we're going to do things that are not right. However, he breaks this social connection to crime down into different areas, four of them, and I'm going to explain them again when we do the so that you're familiar with them if you're taking this as an elective, or again if you're just doing this as part of criminology, that you have a better understanding. But the four of them are differential association, differential reinforcement, definitions, and imitation. And according to Akers, these are four different social factors. Differential association means that we get feedback from the people we associate with, and we tend to associate with people that we like. So that if we like delinquent peer groups, there's a higher likelihood that we're going to be delinquent. The next is differential reinforcement, all right? And that we receive different types of reinforcement from individuals based on whether they view our activities as good or bad. Think here as the nature of informal social control that we talked about way back in Module 2. All right? On top of that are our own individual definitions of crime, all right? Our definitions of what's deviant and what's not. I mean, what somebody considers wrong may not be something that someone else considers wrong. So our individual definitions of what's right and wrong play it. And last but not least, imitation, in that we tend to imitate people we look up to and people we want to be like. Again, there are a number of other theories. There is enough criminological theory that we create a complete course on it, but I wanted to give this to you to give you a background on it. All right? Now, I also want to talk about your assignment coming up. All right? Because going forward for exercises 5, 6, and 7, you're going to need to have a journal article available to you, which means you're going to have to do research. Now, for those of you that have not searched academic journals before, I want to let you know that the writing in these things is a little dense. Articles tend to be about 20 pages long. All right? Now, I want to tell you what these things consist of and tell you what you want to focus on because you're going to learn more information as you go. But for those of you that are just taking your first exploration into academic journals, I want to kind of give you a little background. When you look at an academic journal, you're going to find that it's set up in a format of a lit review, all right, where it discusses the issue that's being done, a methodology where you learn about what the study is doing. You're going to have a results section where whatever issue is being discussed, the results are talked about, then you're going to have a conclusion, all right? Many times the methodology in the results section that you'll be working with, all right, will have terms like regression, terms like t-tests, things that you may not be familiar with yet. I would encourage you to try to read the methodology, ignore the results section, but if you don't understand what the results actually are, go to the conclusion where the author sums it up in layman's terms. But we want to get you introduced to these in your introductory course because they're going to become incredibly important to you throughout your academic career. So your next question is how do I find a journal article? That's a really good question. So what you're going to need to do, and I've got it up here, is that you want to go to our library website. It's the Dean B. Ellis Library. Then, when you pull it up, you'll see on the left-hand side, I've got it circled in red for you right now, a menu that says Research Databases. All right? Click on that. Now, if you've not used the library's research databases before, you will likely be asked to sign in. Now, there's a number of different databases that you can use. Your instructor may disagree with me, but by and large, when I do my research, I use Google Scholar. All right? So what you then want to do after you've signed in is go to Google Scholar, click on that, put the term in just like you would if you were using Google to what you want to research. And studies that the library has, you'll see it'll have a PDF available to you on the right-hand side. This is going to take a little getting used to the first time, but once you have it down. If you're still having trouble, I also want to point to what you see on the right-hand side. We do have a service available to you called Ask a Librarian, and they'll be more than happy to help walk you through the process or even help you find a research article that may help. With that, I hope you do a good job on your assignment using a journal article as part of your weekly essay. Once again, thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you next week.